Hello and welcome to this month's subscription video where I'm going to taste the coffees we're going to send out to all our coffee subscribers in August. So it's already the end of July 2020. Who would have thought we would survive this year? It's been a very, very strange year, and that's why I'm sitting here all by myself, because we still have the threat of coronavirus, and it's safer for me to do this tasting alone at the moment. So we're gonna, instead of making AeroPress or filter coffee like I normally do and taste with a friend, I'm gonna do a cup tasting session all by myself. All by myself, I wanna be. Because we had so many nice feedbacks from last video where I did exactly the same. So if you're wondering how to set up a cupping like this, just watch the video from July, and I have very easy instructions on how to do it. You basically just need some cups, some hot water, a coffee grinder, and a couple of coffees. So let's talk about the coffees we're going to send out, because they are quite nice this month, I think. We have some fresh coffees from Ethiopia that we're very excited to be sending out. It's from a farm that we have been visiting twice already. We bought this coffee for the first time last year, and we actually had it as our Christmas coffee last year, but we only had a very small amount and it was honey processed. This year we have actually bought both washed, honey processed and natural, but unfortunately the washed coffee didn't land as well. It actually had already faded, so when I say faded, it means the green coffee had deteriorated or oxidized, so you get this kind of woody flavor. It means the fats that normally gives you the beautiful flavors in the coffee, they're kind of oxidized, and the only thing you're left with is rancid coffee oils and this kind of cellulose structure, which is the coffee bean. So when you make coffee out of it, you basically taste the woodiness from that cellulose structure. This is very unfortunate, of course, but we're about to sort it out with the importer Belco, which we bought this coffee through, and they've been very helpful. And you know, it was a risk we took, but unfortunately this time we didn't win. So sometimes you have to gamble in order to succeed. Last year, this farmer, whose name is Khalid Shifa, he didn't have a wet mill to be able to wash coffees, but because we bought a small amount of his coffee last year and paid a good price for it, he was able to invest in a very small wet mill. Now, what went wrong with the washed coffee, we don't really know. It might be that it was stored under too humid conditions, and so that the beans kind of absorb more moisture, and that's not very good for the shelf life. So hopefully we will be able to implement some good quality protocol for this farm, so that he can produce more consistent coffees in the future. Because I have to say that the washed coffees are my favorites, and he was able to produce a very, very nice washed coffee. So hopefully next year we will be able to taste that. But that doesn't mean we didn't buy any coffees from him, because we did get some natural and honey processed coffees that are still tasting great. And the first coffee we're going to send out is the natural processed. This is where Khalid would pick the whole coffee cherry and just dry it on raised beds. And then the second coffee we're going to send out is the same coffee but honey processed, which means you remove the skin and the pulp from the coffee, or not the pulp but the skin, and you dry the coffee with the pulp intact on or mucilage intact on the beans on raised beds. So these different types of processes create slightly different flavor profiles in the coffee. We're going to start with a 1 bag subscriber, so everyone who subscribes to 1 bag will get this or more. And if you subscribe to 4 bags, you will get 2 of these bags of this coffee. Let's taste it. Now, the natural. It's probably not the most pronounced natural you will ever taste. As you may know, I'm not a fan of these kind of more deteriorated naturals that taste like very boozy or very in-your-face bubblegum fruit, or rotten fruit, or barnyard, or something like that. This, of course, has a little bit of that ferment flavor that you get when you dry the whole cherry. It just happens naturally. When you put cherries under the sun, they're going to ferment. And this ferment flavor is kind of reminiscent of strawberries and stone fruits like peach and so on. But if it's not controlled well, you can get this really rotten fruit flavor, or overripe mango, overripe strawberry. Sometimes you get moldy flavor, sometimes you get this very peanutty flavor. But for me, this is a very nice natural, where the ferment flavor is quite subtle. It's still there, so you still get this kind of, I would say, more like nectarine and strawberry flavor. And it's still a little bit floral. Quite a nice body texture to it, so it's quite smooth, rich. And the aftertaste is not this kind of very rotten fruit. It's a little chocolatey and lingering. Very nice, I think. So if you make this as espresso, I would highly recommend to actually make it a little bit longer shot. So that means not necessarily longer time, but longer in volume. So let's say you use 20-gram dose, dry dose, and then you would aim for, instead of our standard 40-gram in the cup, we would aim for maybe 50 or 55 grams in the cup. Why? Because it makes the coffee a little bit weaker, and you can really get the nuances from the coffee. You get a better balance, and the kind of fruity and floral flavors will shine a little bit more. Just make sure you try to extract as much as you can, as always. Very sweet, very fruity. Second coffee is going to be the honey process from this farm. I'm going to talk about the farm very soon. Which is quite different from the natural. And as always with cupping, you will be able to taste the differences much more clearly when the coffee is cooled down a little bit. So the honey process, for me, when you compare it to the natural, you get this kind of, you know, when you eat honey, you get this kind of floral notes, and you have this sweetness, but there's also a very nice bitterness inside. This is how this coffee tastes like to me. Honey, floral, still with a little bit of stone fruit flavor. And bear in mind that this is not the typical Ethiopian coffee that you might be used to. It's not an Ethiopian coffee like you would expect from Yirgacheffe or Guji, or it's not this kind of in-your-face peach, in-your-face florals. It's much more subtle, a bit more big body. And I think the reason why is because this farm is in a different area. It's very close to the town Agaro in the southwest of Ethiopia. It's in an area called Goma. The coffee farm is around 35 hectares, and I think Khalid Shifa, the farmer, is growing coffee in like 17 hectares, but I think he's planting more. And what's really remarkable about this farm is when you visit, you will actually go into the farm and not see a single coffee tree, because it's full of coffee trees. And they've been growing. He hasn't been doing anything to the trees. They've just been growing for many, many years. So you're actually walking underneath a canopy of coffee trees. It's a beautiful, beautiful farm. And those trees were planted by his grandfather many, many years ago. And his grandfather actually got the seeds from the nearby forest, which is called, I think, Choche or Koche. So what they would do is they would go into the forest and, you know, find some nice coffee trees that, you know, had good yields, that didn't have any disease or anything. They would take the cherries of those trees, take the beans out of the cherries and plant on their farm. So most of the coffees on Khalid's farm are from these kind of very, very old trees. Now, unfortunately, they had been taking down the shade trees in the past, but Khalid is now replanting shade trees. So in the coming years, of course, he will have more shade. And he's also planting new trees with the different seeds. So seeds from his old trees and also some new seedlings that he's gotten. The farm is organic, so the only thing they actually do is let the coffee grow, and when they remove weeds, they actually do it by hand, or like this kind of machete, which they have to do quite a lot because the weeds grow fast in Ethiopia. And everything is hand-picked. They sort the ripe cherries. He's very meticulous when it comes to drying. He has a lot of raised beds where he dries the coffee very carefully. And that's why this coffee is very clean and also very sweet. But it's not the typical Ethiopian that you might expect. It's not this kind of Yirgacheffe profile. It's very different. And this is why I like it, because, you know, not everything has to taste the same all the time. The natural is really nice. But with the honey process, you can taste kind of more of that florality that probably is more coming from the actual beans and not the fermentation process. So those 2 coffees will go out to the 1 bag and 2 bag subscribers. And of course, if you're subscribing to 4 and 5 bags, you will get 2 bags of each. And then the last coffee was supposed to be the washed one, but unfortunately we can't send out coffee that we are not happy with. So I've selected another coffee that I'm really happy with and that we still had a little bit left of. And that's SL28 variety from Finca Tamana in Colombia. And it's a quite strange combination, I would say, but it's a really nice contrast as well. And what I'm really proud about is that I planted these trees together with Elias I think now 7 or 8 years ago. I can't even remember. So now we're actually looking at renovating the farm, which means we're cutting down the trees so that they can grow up again. And because normally you get the cherries only in the fresh areas on the trees, so the new branches will yield most of the cherries. SL28 is a huge tree, so the more it grows, the harder it gets to pick. And I would say the average height of the workers on Tamana is probably 160 centimeters, so they're a little bit shorter than I am. And it's harder for them to pick the tall trees, which means we need to cut them down so that they can grow up again and also yield more. Now, this coffee is, compared to the Ethiopian, you're gonna taste, it's quite herbal, and that's because it's from Colombia, and it's kind of the terroir taste of this farm, I think. All the coffees from Tamana has this kind of slight bell pepper flavor. I don't really mind it. But you can also taste this really nice red berry flavor. It's also a little bit floral, but different from the Ethiopian coffees. And really rich, heavy, sweet, dense mouthfeel, which I really, really like. So for those of you who don't know Tamana, we have a lot of videos from Finca Tamana. There's even a video that I made where we taste cherries from different varieties, where you can see the SL28 varieties. But as I said, I think this is one of the better coffees from Finca Tamana. And there's not a huge amount of it yet, because we only have, I say we, but it's just because I'm there all the time. I stay on Elias's farm when I work on my own farm, which is next doors. But it's really Elias's farm, but we planted this together, and I think it was around 1 to 1.5 hectares with SL28. We're planting a little bit more because we're really happy with this coffee, and it produces well, and it tastes really nice, I think. Very nice. So those are the coffees we're going to send out in August, and hopefully in September you'll be able to taste some other nice, really nice coffees. So if you want to subscribe to our coffees, go to our website. You can choose 1 to 6 bags, and you can also choose whether you want some of it for espresso, or roasted for espresso, or some of it with roasted for filter, or just espresso. You can also give it as a gift. Or you can just give the gift to yourself, have a prepaid subscription. But our recurring subscription, you can pause at any time, resubscribe anytime. And we send out coffees on the first Wednesday of every month. And I'm the one who chooses the coffees to send out. And normally we'll actually send out something rare, or something that we normally don't sell, because, when I go to these farms, for instance, with the Tamana, they might have 4 bags of the SL28, and then they have 400 bags of the Caturra in Variedad Colombia. So I will buy them both, but we normally will save the smaller quantities for special clients like Restaurant Noma, or for instance our subscribers. Cool. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment below, or you can also contact us through Instagram, of course, or just email. I hope you liked the coffees, and I'll see you next month. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.